to keep it not like now I'm going to go there and pitch Snowflake unless there's a pitch Snowflake session, which the technology in preview and so on is. But when you do the keynote, you have to talk about something.
Okay, good. But getting back to what you said about it, so you actually did some vibe coding, or what was you mentioned something about you need to create some demo. What was that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I finally, and I'm probably the last one on the ball when it comes to these type of things. So I finally tried to use, and in this case, use Gemini to produce code for me. So I was, or are, because I'm not done yet, but I'm building a demo for something called Wealth Management Customer 360. And part of that, I need to generate data because we need synthetic data because there's no customers that are going to provide the data to me. Yeah. So, and in order to that, I need to generate some nice code that can actually create this data, and I can rerun it, and I can, decide how many customers I'm going to have, and then many advisors and so on. So I gave it a try. I had a colleague that he posted an internal Slack to say, well, hey, if you're going to generate code, here's some tricks you can apply to the LLM.
So you need to generate data, but to generate data, you need to generate some code, and then you used vibe coding to generate the code to generate the data.
Yeah, which I mean, in the end, it when it comes to generating data, it's trying to figure out how to make it as realistic as possible, but also how do I keep things together. So if I generate customers out of the blue, I also need to tie them to something, and so on and so forth. So the whole experience was quite fascinating in the sense of how we can resonate and give me, this is the way how this is going to be approached. This is the structure I'm going to create. Let's start with step one, generating this, and then we iterate through this. I test it. I say, well, this is great, but we need to change X, Y, and Z. We get through the whole code, and then after a while, I realize, well, I want to do it a little bit differently. So I give it instructions to do that, and I don't need to be very precise, which I found it was pretty much like talking with someone next to you to say,
and it understands it rather well, right?
It does.
It can even write some prompts that is very well or not well written in some sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I mean, because I got paranoid after a while, I said, can you provide me with a prompt that I can use with you later on if things goes bad?
So you generated a prompt to use as a prompt.
so like a history restart to say, well, if we need to restart this, can you summarize what we have done and give enough information so we can restart? And it could do that. And I found it also fascinating because what I did also, once I had my first version of the data, I wanted it to generate a user interface for me in Python. And then I suddenly started jumping back and forth between, I need to change something in the data, so let's go back to the data and do that. And it could keep track of it. Now, having said that, I'm doing things where I feel like now I've reached the limit of the number of tokens it can handle because it starts forgetting things. So it's not.
Okay, so you had a number of iterations, you generated code to generate the data, but then you also generated code for the user interface.
Yeah.
So then you went back and said, please change how the code is generated, or for how the data is generated.
Yeah, and then it can update the code to follow that, because I could just say, well, now I want to have a user interface against this data that we generated. These are the different pages I want. This is what I want these pages to contain. And you should use, in this case, we're using Streamlit in Snowflake. So I specified a couple of things, and they said, right. And it built it for me. And then when we went back and changed the data, I said, well, now I need to update these pages to reflect this. And it just took the changes.
And what kind of data were you trying to generate?
So so I generate so wealth management, so there's advisory data, it's customer data, it's portfolio data, and which is the most not fascinating, but the interesting part, it's also interaction data. So I have it to generate prompts in order to ask another LLM to generate unstructured content, so call transcripts, emails, complaints, and make them as realistic as possible.
So it's not just the time series stock price kind of data?
No, it's interaction. So it also created logic to create interactions and generated based on the customer, the wealth it had, and then it said, well, now it's a monthly catch up, and please, and it's done through a call, so generate a transcript, a transcribed call. That's what I was asking for. So it could also generate instructions for using other LLMs in order to produce this unstructured data that I can store and then use later on.
It's a lot of meta here.
It is, which is fascinating me endlessly, and it's after a while it's also kind of a little bit scary how I interact with it. It's in my mind it becomes like I'm talking with a colleague.
It is, right? Yeah.
And it's kind of scary in a way how it responds and talks with me in that sense.
And you use Gemini, right? Or
yeah, we're using
2.5. Or which one?
2.5 advanced. So here's the thing with like probably in your organization, another organization in Snowflake, we have kind of policies around what we can use for what. So Gemini or Google Gemini is one of the things we can actually use for producing things that we use in work. So otherwise I might have used something else, but
cool. I'm a super cool stuff, and you were positively surprised with the experience?
I was positively surprised. So I was a skeptic before, but in the end, what I also realized is you need to understand what it's producing. So I mean, if I didn't understand Python code and the libraries it's using, it would be probably harder, because otherwise I cannot figure out if it's doing things wrong, if it's using the wrong parameters or the wrong libraries and so on. But
I mean, you're a technical person, and I'm shortly going to have you also describe yourself a bit more. But I think also the general idea of how we can now, for non-technical people, not like yourself, but other people that are more business-oriented, that don't know how to generate data or code, potentially in the future can actually do that surprisingly easily by speaking to AI and then having it generate both data and code in different ways, and then find insights and build applications. I think that's a very beautiful future that will be exciting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But I mean, the thing we are still missing is that we still need a human between, because we need to verify. I think that is the next level, to train new models that can actually handle that interactions better. But
in a couple of years, perhaps.
Who knows? With
that, very welcome here, Mats Stellwall. You're a principal architect, right, of AI and machine learning at Snowflake. And please describe a bit yourself. What's your background? How did you come into the field of AI and the role that you have in Snowflake? Who is really Mats Stellwall?
That is a good question. So, I mean, I've been around for a while. So in my background is mechanical engineering. So when I graduated in 91, the market wasn't that great in the industry. So there was no going from when I started my training, when they say, well, you're going to have a job immediately after you leave, to when I was leaving, there was nothing there. So I tried to figure out what I want to do. So it took me a couple of years, and then I ended up in what we call ADB training. So it's a semester of just data science. And I thought that was fun, because I've been playing around with computers before. I ended up to do an internship as a very small consulting firm. So I was building client-server applications. I found myself building more and more applications that was data-centric, so building a lot of reports and so on and so forth. So I moved away to another company that was doing BI and data warehousing, because I thought that was interesting. So I did that for a lot of years as a consultant, and then I mean, after a while, I ended up in Cognos for doing BI reporting. Then I ended up in IBM for doing some more consulting. And part of that journey, IBM acquired SPSS. And my wife was working for SPSS at that point of time.
So you met your wife at IBM?
No, I did not. I mean, if we're going to go that route, I met her through... If you're old enough, you might remember something called Lunar Storm.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yes,
so that's how we met.
okay, cool.
I don't know.
It's the Tinder of the old days.
No, I wouldn't say, but not really. But that's how we met. But
Okay.
nevertheless, she was working there. I found predictive analytics quite interesting. So when IBM acquired SPSS, it opened up some positions there, and I was kind of tired to do the consulting thing. So I just took the chance and managed to get the role there. And from there, it really fascinated me. So starting from that, I've been working with data science or predictive analytics or machine learning in one way or another in various roles. And then I mean, the way I ended up in Snowflake wasn't planned in any way. So I was working at Oracle at the time, having a similar role that I have now. So kind of a data science SME. And I had gotten a new job at a company called Signavio. To work with process intelligence, so process mining, which I still find very interesting. Yeah. But COVID hit, right. So I was let go, and after 6 weeks, I find myself like, okay, there's some challenges ahead now. I don't have work, and at the same time, my wife had applied for a new job, so she had also put in her notice, and the new job was canceled, so she was also out of job. So I thought, what the heck, let's just get something out there. And Snowflake was very fast to reach out.
Nice.
And my thinking was, I've done data warehousing before, I know it, why not go back to basic and do that for a couple of years? And they were very open with me when I was talking with them, and said, like, we know you have a data science, machine learning background, we don't have anything. We find it very interesting, but we don't have anything, so don't expect to work with it. And I said, fine, I can do this. And so I joined Snowflake. And when I joined, I realized, well, there's not many people that is pushing data science, but Snowflake did have some value points around that. So I just grabbed that area for EMEA and became the data science guy in Snowflake.
Oh, cool. Before we go too far into your current role in Snowflake, perhaps people would like to know, what is really Snowflake for people that don't know it? How would you describe the company?
Oh, I mean, that's a tough one. But I mean, we are a product and only thing, and we call ourselves the AI data cloud, and that sounds very fancy. But in the end, we are a data platform for the cloud, and we have a lot of fancy functionality around that. But I mean, the essence of what we do is managing data in a very, very, very clever way, and we are very good at it.
I mean, in sense, if you were to compare it to traditional like relational databases, or how you can scale it up, how you can move to the cloud, I guess you have, one of the strengths, if I were to say it, is, I mean, the scaling aspects of it, right?
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, if I go, so let me put it like this way. So when I joined Snowflake, part of the process, you read through the website, you go through all the material, and I mean, I'm coming from American companies, so working for Oracle and IBM, and everything is great by marketing. Yeah. Everything works when you read the marketing stuff, yes. And then when you use it, it might not work as well as you think. Yeah. So I had the same thinking about Snowflake when I joined. It's like, okay, easy to use, everything works, okay, fine. And when I started, I got myself an account, and I was starting to do some training, and I realized quickly, it's like, holy crap, it actually does what it says. It do deliver on the marketing promise, which was very, for me, it was a aha thing. And these guys know what they're doing. So I would say that is the thing. I mean, it's a very well architected product that actually does what it says it's going to do, and does it very well. And so for me, that is the fascinating part of being at Snowflake. I mean, I was very skeptical when I started.
I mean, I like you came from a more data science and AI point of view, and I also been looking into like Databricks and different like Spark solutions and big data tooling like that. And my view was a bit like Snowflake was more on the data warehousing side, and then other solutions was more on the data science side. But I must say that Snowflake has really picked up on the AI side in recent years. Would you agree on that? Or
Oh yeah, definitely. As I said, when I joined 2020, the data the most data science thing we had was a Python connector, which basically was a Python library that you could send SQL through Python and get back a pandas data frame. And the whole, USP of us was we can manage the data very well, and you have the marketplace and everything. And then we fast forward now where we have, you can do model training, you can run containers, you can do model registry, you can run a number of LLMs. Well, we run a number of foundation models that you can use and so on and so forth. So the last 16 months has been crazy. I mean, even I, as working there, has a hard time to keeping up. And sometimes customers says, oh, you have this function. Do we? And then you go look and, oh, we have.
Yeah, it's tough to just keep up with the general landscape of AI, but then in Snowflake it moves fast. But would it be fair to say, and sorry to bring up a competitor of yours, but if we take Databricks, they were more in data science, but really bad in data warehousing and working with structured data, and then they're trying to move in that direction. You were really good in structured data and data warehousing, and now moving into AI. And would that be a fair kind of?
Yeah, you could say. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no secret in that. I mean, well, basically we were focusing initially on data warehouse and semi-structured data. So I think the ambition was, when they started, was that they saw that you have relational databases is really good at relational data, and then you have Hadoop, which is very good at the unstructured data, but once you're trying to combine it, it's very hard. So that was what they were focusing on, and of course for analytical workloads, and having Spark and Databricks coming from a data engineering, data science background, where they try to solve these type of things, and now moving. And I mean, if you put us on top of each other, you will see we overlap 98%, and then it's just different flavors of things.
I actually attended the last year's what's called Snowflake World Tour or something. Right?
Yeah.
I guess the theme then was like enterprise AI, was it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to see how much you... And I actually was not very knowledgeable, I must say, about Snowflake and their AI offerings, but it's now when I actually do have a bit more experience with it, it's surprising to see how actually
it is. Yeah, it's sometimes it's kind of it's not a well-kept secret, but it feels like it sometimes. And I think we have been better to have a market message that resonates a little bit better. I think it's also our Sridhar, our new, he has been for over a year as a CEO, has changed a lot of things. He's very active as well on the market, and talking with people around this has helped us a lot in this.
If you were to speak a bit more about your role at Snowflake as a principal architect, is it specifically for AI then, or how would you describe your role?
Yeah, so my role, so I'm focusing on AI ML, and actually I'm also focusing on specific on financial services. So the whole purpose, I usually try to describe it as a customer advisory type of role. So my job is to talk with customers and try to explain to them and discuss with them is how Snowflake fits into all this when they want to do AI and ML. Where we are a good fit, where we're not a good fit, and so on and so forth. So it's not so much and I think using architect sometimes is a kind of a misleading. I don't draw that many diagrams. It's quite easy with Snowflake. It's just one box and then you're done. So
is it really? Okay.
Well, it depends on how much you want to do, but it's the same thing if you think of it like how do you draw a architected diagram of Salesforce? It's just a box that does it. It's a SaaS solution, so the inner workings is not that interesting, to be honest. But we sometimes tend to do it a little bit more complex, just to look, there's tables here, there's this here, there's this here, but
you have all the Cortex services and whatnot.
Yeah, but it still is functions that, I mean, it's the same thing if you you don't take a relational database and then you start drawing like, okay, so in this Oracle installation, you can draw a database, and then I have this select function, I have this function and this function. This is just like we just trying to make it more interesting, but I usually said just draw one box and say data in and data out, and then done with it.
It's funny you say it like that. I remember those Spotify days, we actually tried to say, what is really the vision that we want to have for a music service, and in reality, it should be just a big button saying play.
Yeah.
That's the only thing it should be, and it should understand what you want to do. You shouldn't have to care about how the songs are organized or what you want to listen to and whatever. It should just understand you in some sense. It sounds like you're.
I think we internally we talk about when we do it externally. We usually talk about the easy button. So making it as easy. I use it as maybe I shouldn't say this, but I use it sometimes as an argument when I talk with the development. I say when they do something, and I say, well, this is not the easy button.
Nice to hear. So you work a bit more in finance services, and as an architect, though. Or am I correct in saying you're trying to understand how they could implement it in their organization, or what?
Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, a lot of it is now in a lot of discussion is like they can come to us and say, well, we want to do this use case. So let's say we have our portfolio data in Snowflake. We want to talk to that portfolio data. We want to do text to SQL. How can we do that? How do we start? What is the, advantages? What can you offer us? So there's a lot of these type of discussion, and then there's other type of discussions which is more. We want to do well. We are doing AI. How can we use Snowflake in this context? What do you provide, and how do you provide it? So I mean, I'm still part of the sales side. So a lot of it is positioning and
But if you were to go a bit more technical then, and Snowflake, of course, is known for their data warehousing and cloud capabilities that they do have. But what kind of AI offerings would you say Snowflake do have? Start easy. Is it just a box, or is it something more?
I mean, in the end, it's not a box. So let's say, I mean, we provide in a couple of levels. So we can say on the base level, we provide a number of foundation models that you can use like any other foundation models. You choose a model, you provide a prompt, you get an answer, and then you can use them in various ways as part of a SQL statement, so you can run it over your table and so on. And then we have functionality to certain of these models. You can also fine-tune them in Snowflake. So taking Mistral Large 2, and then I fine-tune it on my own data, and that model stays that. So that is the foundation.
So you manage the fine-tuning as well then? Or?
Yeah, so we provide it as what we want to call a serverless feature. So basically you just point to this is my source data, and this is the model I want to fine-tune, and this is the model name I want to have of the new model. So we provide that type of functionality, and then we also provide more task-specific functions, so LLM-based functions for doing things like summarize something. So instead of me writing a prompt for an LLM to summarize a text, I can just say, summarize this. We have a function for sentiment scoring, and now we also have a function for entity sentiment, so we can also provide which topics you want to get sentiments for, and then there's translate functions and a couple of others we can use for this. And then we have you could call it high-level services. So we also provide functionality around text to SQL, which we call Cortex Analyst, which is in the end is a REST service that you can use from outside Snowflake to talk with data you have in Snowflake based on a semantic model you have. We have a Cortex search functions that gives you the possibility to do content retrieval based on unstructured data. So
especially a RAG solution, right?
Especially a RAG solution or enterprise search solution as well. So think of it. So Cortex search is quite an interesting aspect because it's a combination of similarities, but also semantic search. So think of it as similarity search combined with Google search functionality. So the keyword ranking and these type of things is applied as well. But the main goal is for RAG solutions. But we have customers that start using it for enterprise search type of solutions as well. And then we have on top of that, we now have what we called Cortex agents, which is data agents. So based on the question I ask, should I use Cortex Analyst to retrieve structured data, or should I use Cortex Search to retrieve unstructured data in order to answer this question?
Awesome. I'd like to break down each one of these to describe a bit more. And we actually had a session last week speaking specifically about agentic kind of AI.
Oh, nice.
So perhaps I'm thinking about the order here, but let's go agent, the Cortex agents solution. And I actually liked the way you describe it, and you said a bit about that it can choose a bit, what kind of other tooling, if you call it that it should use. How would you describe or define what is really a more agentic kind of AI solutions?
I think that is it's a very wide question. We have so many things of it, but I think for me is what I work with day to day is kind of limited. It's just data retrieve. Around data agents. So we don't have today anything that can do anything above that. But I think it's the agentic part, which I find interesting is, or how I see it is, the possibilities to have multiple tools that do different things. So select data, look up something on the website, do something, do X or Y, and having it to select between these, which tools are needed in order to answer the questions I provide. And to be honest, a lot of this is kind of, I don't know, I don't want to use a scary word, but it's kind of a worrying thing in this, that we have an LLM to choose. And the choosing is not always so, logical, or I can see the logic. I like the new models that has more reasoning, because they can also provide you, this is how I was thinking, this is why I'm choosing this, and so on. Because I think that is an important aspect of this, to understand, okay, why did you pick this tool for this? Or why did you submit, if you allow it to do something, so why did you submit to this tool X, Y, and Z? I need to have the reasoning behind this. So, yeah.
Okay, so cool. Good, I like it. I love, these kind of super simplistic kind of definitions of things. And me and Henrik sometimes argue a lot about this. But would you agree with a super simplistic 3-word description of agentic AI as the ability to choose action? If you take a normal ChatGPT, it just output text.
It kind of, but it's maybe. It's in the end, it has to choose between multiple things, and then choose one or more of those and use those.
Because otherwise you could manually program basically a set of AI tools to run in some kind of sequence.
And the poor man's agentic framework.
Yes. Another definition that we talked about, which is a bit harder, is to say that agentic AI is when it chooses when to stop, meaning that it continues to run a number of steps until it comes to some kind of termination decision, saying, now I'm done, and here is the result. Would you prefer that, or do you think it's sufficient to say that when an AI system can choose what tool to use, what action to take, then it would be agentic?
Maybe. I think it's so, because it can be both, and it is both, and I think that is the challenge in this. Because from a surface point, when you look into it, it looks very simple. I define the number of tools and then choose, but then when you start thinking of it, it's like, but there's a complex process that is ongoing here. And how do I explain that? Because if I program, there's logic that I can follow, and I can step through and say, well, when this condition is met, this is going to happen. But here it's kind of you need to have an end goal to say, well, this is the end state if that you need to achieve. Otherwise, continue until you do. So I think I like both of them, because sometimes it's just enough to have the first one, because you don't need to know that much more, because that might be just confusing things. Because I think we are moving also into an aspect where we, well, maybe not, but I hope so, where we need to the need to describe this is less needed, because we do accept how it works, because it's
sort of trust it a bit more.
Trust it. I don't need to explain how a relational database works, because I have no clue in some cases. I know the basics, but I don't know exactly. But I still use it every day, and I don't. Nobody comes to me and say, explain exactly how, well, actually they do sometimes, how Snowflake works when it selects data, but usually they don't, because they accept it. It has.
I guess it's like driving a car. I mean, you don't need to explain all the details of an engine to be able to drive a car in some sense.
No, thank God you don't have to. Otherwise, I would never get my driver's license.
Awesome, but let's go through the other parts, both the Cortex Search and Cortex Analyst. And if we start a bit more with the Cortex Analyst, just describe briefly, what does it do?
It does text to SQL with some add-ons, but the primary goal for it is taking a question I'm asking and turn it into Snowflake optimized SQL that I can execute.
Mm. And actually, to me, it's a rather big thing, because in general, we want to have more and more people being able to find insights from data. Now, the problem with that is that you normally are required to know either a lot about Python to be able to process the data and do all the ELT kind of processing, and building the pipelines and bringing the data models, and then in the end you need to probably do some SQL to be able to extract the data, and then you need to know how to visualize it in different ways. But I guess if we can remove that constraint and have more people, at least for basic use cases, to just talk to an AI, either by writing or talking, to get the data you want, that would be a big thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in a way, I think so. In essence, what do you say? I think it's a good thing. I think this is a really interesting product, and the way, not just Snowflakes, but the whole talk to your data type of aspect. Yes. But I also think that we might hype it a little bit too much now. And if you think of it like, if you remember when self-service BI came, so when Tableau stepped into the door, everybody, we should throw out the dashboards, because now everybody can analyze their own data. They can ask the questions. They can just create whatever they want. And we did that a lot. And then people started also realize, like, well, I don't want to start every day with a blank canvas. I actually want to have a starting point, and then I want to analyze the data. So what I'm after is, I think this is a really good tool in our toolbox. But I think when it's really getting interesting is I can get my initial data to say, well, here's the state of the world for me. And then I can say, well, based on this, tell me what's matter, or what should I do about things. And I think we are heading, we are not there. There's a while to get there. But I think this is the end game. Sometimes I say, I don't want to talk to the data. I want the data to talk to me. So I want to be notified to say, you know what, I don't know, sales has changed since yesterday, and here's the reason why, or here's the key things that has happened in this data, and here's 5 recommendations that you need to do in order to change the outcome of this. Because then it's getting really interesting, because then I get also the what has happened, but also what I need to do. Sometimes when it might have been changing, but my experience has been, at least when I did a lot of BI and data warehouse, when you talk with C-level people, and they say, I don't have time to read the freaking dashboard. I just want to have a green or a red light. If it's a green light, I don't have to do anything. And if it's red, I need to call someone and do something. And I think the end goal of this is kind of a similar thing if you start thinking of it like, I want to get the insights pushed to me in some way or another. But I do think text to SQL is quite interesting, because it's the self-service analytics next level, because the challenge we have with these other BI tools is you actually need to know how you can combine your data. So you need to know what to drag to where and how to connect things. What text to SQL give you is, well, we still need to have some kind of a semantic model behind the scenes, but given the semantic models, what I need to know is just what I want to ask about, and then it can generate the correct SQL for me. So I think it is a step up on that ladder. But
let me disagree a bit here. That's good. I like what you said a bit about, in the end, you just want a green and red light. I certainly agree. But then if you get the red light, you want to be able to analyze it somehow,
Yes.
right? And then what you do? I mean, then you need to be able to talk to the data in some
Absolutely,
way, right?
yeah. But you have a starting point, right?
Okay, so starting point is data speaks to you, but then in the end, you want to start speaking to the data to understand.
Yeah, because then I can investigate. I mean, I think also, and I mean, no offense, but while people like you and me, we are analytical people, so we like to dig into things. So for us, this is a very natural thing, and it talks to us, pun intended, in a way, because we can follow our train of thought very easily and ask questions. And okay, what happens if I change this, or if I look at this angle, and we can take this constraint. Many people are not. They just want to have, here's the state, and then they can start asking questions about it. But I think I'm not saying it has potential, and I don't say it's an important feature. I think it's a very important feature. I think we might overplay its significance in the state it is today. I think I mean, if I'm plugging my own company or Snowflake in this, what I find interesting now, we started with text to SQL, and what we have added now is I can also say, based on this SQL and based on the executed data, it can also provide me an answer. So, okay, so based on these numbers, this is some conclusions. And then it can now send me also a nice visualization of this data. And now it's starting to get interesting, because then it not just only give me a SQL, it doesn't just give me numbers in a table, it also gives me some kind of summarization of these numbers. Yeah. So I think we are starting to getting there that it gives us. But I mean, but it might be just me that wants to have that type of features in that sense.
I think there are, even for experts in data engineering, it can be really hard to find insights from data. And if you have thousands of data models and tables and data marts, and you then want to answer a question you get, it's hard to just know where to get started.
Absolutely, and that is a valid. We have a customer in UK, and what they're using it for is basically for their data engineering to understand where to get the data for. So the business user comes to say, well, I need you to create this data product for me, or this I need this data set, and it's like, okay, I have no clue where to find it. Yeah. So they use this functionality to ask the question, just to get the SQL, because then they can see, okay, these 5 tables I need to use in order to build this pipeline. Yeah. So they are actually using it for that purpose, as a developer helper tool, in order to figure out in which table and columns does this information actually exist. So yeah.
So there are a lot of challenges, so to speak, with the current way of working, I would say, with normal data engineering or analytics engineering in Snowflake, that I think AI can help with, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think, to be honest, we've been focusing a lot on the end user side. I hope the next focus will be around this type, how I can generate pipelines based on. If I describe what I want to do is saying I want to take data that comes into table A, I want it to do X, Y, Z, and then I want this and this and this. Please generate the code needed for that, and then we can start implementing. We don't have it. You can use other tools for it, but I would see that it's a next evolution.
And I appreciate you saying that, okay, we have a certain functionality today. It's not perfect, it doesn't do everything. It's a starting point, and we shouldn't overhype, what the current functionality does. But I still have this kind of vision that I wish there will be a point when talking to data will be a reality.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, if people can do that without knowing all, the thousands of tables you have, and how the fields are described, and how to join the tables, and how to write the SQLs, and how to visualize that in some kind of report, and imagining a future where you simply say, I now want to understand how the sales have progressed in this country over these products over this time period, and please visualize it. That would be an amazing future, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Some of it we can build today. I don't know why Maybe we have. I haven't talked to all customers, but I mean, what I would see is what I would like. You can do that in the multiple steps. Like first, you go and describe. This is what I'm interested to knowing every day. So please send me an email, an SMS, or a text, or a chat, or whatever with this information, which I can discuss further with you about in that sense. And we can definitely build that today. And then I think that is where you get this nice future, because you do want to have a starting point, right? You don't want to ask every day what was the sales previous week divided by X, Y, and Z. You want to have that, but then you want to say, okay, these numbers looks a little bit interesting, so why don't you drill down on this? Or
so you have the normal dashboard, but when you see some kind of change, you want to understand why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a golden future will give us some proactivity in that to say, hey, this looks strange. You should do X, Y, Z because of Z, Y, and these things that has happened before.
I think that's, I know in Google Cloud, if you look in their security kind of functionality, they basically give you a text description of what happened in recent weeks.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, normally you have this kind of traffic, you have this many attacks and these kind of security vulnerabilities. And in last week, you see one increase here and decrease there. So it basically give you a summary of what happened in recent times. Wouldn't that be nice to have from data in general in some sense?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I agree. And I mean, you can basically build that with existing functionality. But of course, if you could have it in a package solution or package functionality, it would even be better. I think we probably definitely heading in that direction with a lot of it.
And if we were to go to, what is the functionality? I recognize, of course, Cortex Analyst is still in early state, and there's a lot of challenges still with it. But could you go, for people that are a bit more technically interested, how does Cortex Analyst work today?
It is in the end, it's not a very simple, but from a user endpoint, it's a very simple. So what Cortex Analyst is requiring is that you create a semantic model, and today that is a YAML file. So think of it like I need to describe the tables I want to ask questions of. So what I need to tell about this table is, of course, I need to give them a description. What does this table contain? Which columns do I have? What does they contain? Is there any synonyms for the names? If we call it, what is some examples? What is the relationships I have, and so on and so forth. The nice thing is we do provide functionality that can generate this for you, and we're using LLMs to create table descriptions, columns descriptions automatically for you. So it needs that, and basically based on that, behind the scenes there's an agentic application that does a lot of things. It uses you questions. It checks for what is the intent of these questions. Do we understand it? If we don't understand what the user is asking for, we ask for clarification and send it back. Once we know that, we go and can we generate a SQL based on this question? We know what it's asking about. We know how to go forward. We generate the SQL, and if it's a correct SQL, we send it back. So there's and I think it is very simplistic in the sense of, for me to use, the only thing I need to focus is to create my semantic model. In the best of worlds, I already have descriptions of my tables, but if you don't, we can generate them for you based on the data you have.
Can you do the YAML file automatically in some way?
There's a tool in Snowflake, so it's called Cortex Analyst. You go in, you choose your database table, and then you choose your tables you want to have, and then it generates the first version of the files.
Okay.
And then you need to set up. The next generation that is soon there, you can create what we call semantic views instead. So you can describe it as schema objects. So doing more of a semantic modeling of the data, and then we will utilize that instead. But there's a manual step around this still. But once you have that, then it's more of a it's a REST API. So for every call, you provide your semantic file, and then what is the question I want to ask from that, and then you get the SQL back, and then it's up for you to execute that SQL we are working on features that actually going to allow you to automatically execute the SQL on our side directly. But now you get the SQL back, and based on that, you can execute it if you provide us with a what we call a query ID, so a unique identifier for that execution. We can also provide you a summarization of that data as an answer back as well. Mm-hmm. So
in some sense, you can talk to the data in some sense.
And it works quite well. And I mean, there's a lot of things you might sometimes need to do in tweaking. You could provide custom instructions to say, like, what I always have to do, since I have demo data, to say, well, when I ask for today, I actually mean this date, use this date always in the filtering. So you can also instruct it how to treat things. Or when we say EU, we mean these countries. When I say North America, I mean these countries, and so on.
Nice. If we were to move a bit into Cortex search, can you just describe briefly what does that do?
It's content retrieval based on queries. So from unstructured data. So what it does is it takes your text data and behind the scenes we are indexing it. We are creating embeddings, and then we search on it. So based on similarity search, and then also based on semantic search. And then we do re-ranking of the result and return that back to the user, which is also it's a REST API, so you can integrate it with whatever you want to integrate it with.
Yeah. So it's enterprise search, right?
Enterprise search. So you can say I usually, when I talk to customers, so think of it the traditional, what we call traditional RAG type of similarity search in combination with Google search on the same data, which according to the benchmark we've done and the studies we've done, we get a much, much higher accuracy compared to traditional ways of doing RAG.
So you provide a set of files, I guess. It could be PDF or Word documents or things like that, right? And it chunks it up, I guess, in some way.
It doesn't do it that automatically today. So you have to do that yourself. So we provide some helper functions. So there's a function called parse document that can read it as OCR reading, so just extract the text, or we can do a layout reading, so we also create the markdown for the structure of it, and then we provide today just a recursive split character function for splitting it into chunks, and then we feed it in this. Now, what we do have, if you're using SharePoint, we can actually point it to SharePoint, and it can automatically handle it itself. And further down the road, we're actually going to do all the chunking ourselves, so you can just point to where the documents are stored, and we ingest them and create the indexes.
But let me see, I'm a bit confused here as well. I mean, you do have some kind of document AI functionality as well.
Yeah,
right.
We have, which is a slightly different thing. So, and I don't play marketing, but we document AI is a acquisition we did maybe 2 years ago. From a Polish company, and what they do is they are extracting values from unstructured data, so from documents, PDFs, or pictures, and so on and so forth, based on questions. But it's not a RAG type of. It's not a text extraction in the sense of extracting big paragraphs. Think of it if you get things like invoices, and you want to process these invoices in order to extract, who is it from, what is the date, what is the amount, what is the payment terms, and these type of things. So what document AI enables you is I'm just writing. It's a process where you begin by defining the values I want to extract and how to extract them, and the way I extract them is saying, what is the company name? What is the invoice date? What is the due date? What is the invoice amount? And based on that, it will identify these values and return them. Yeah. Once I've defined that, I publish it it becomes a model in Snowflake, so it's an object I use. Yeah. And then I can use that on my data pipeline. So whenever I get in new invoices, I run them through this function, and I get the extracted data that I can store in the table and use further down the road. Now, the way why it gets confusing is because we put it under the Cortex umbrella as an AI function, but it's more a data engineering, data pipeline function, to be honest.
Yeah. Because you mentioned for the Cortex search that it does OCR and these kind of things, and it sounded
the Cortex doesn't do OCR, but we have a function that is called parse document.
Okay.
That one does OCR and text extraction. But that function's whole purpose is just to extract everything from a document, where document AI's purpose is to extract specific values or tables from a document.
Okay. So in short, Cortex search is separate from document AI, although they have some kind of overlap in the purpose.
In a way they might have, but it doesn't really have it. It's different use cases for it. So even if we can say, well, you can use document AI to feed a RAG type of application, absolutely. But see it more as I have a document onboarding process. So in finance, it's very common with know your customers, and maybe not so much in the Nordics, but outside the Nordics, you do have to send in, a photocopy of your passport. You need to send in a pay slip and these type of things. And someone needs to extract the values from those and store it so they can use it in combination to really figure out that do I earn as much money I say I earn, to motivate why I move so much money around. And that's where document AI comes in and shine, because it's very easy and it is very good at extracting values.
And let's see how technical we can get here, but I love tech, so if we could go a bit tech first on Cortex search. I mean, you mentioned the RAG, and I think RAG is something that a lot of people knows about.
Yeah.
Retrieval augmented generation, and it has some kind of vector database, I guess, in your case, and it tries to chunk up some kind of documents, even though you have to do it potentially manually in some sense.
Yeah.
But then you get a set of paragraphs or a set of sentences that you can search through, and then when you search for whatever query you have, it will find that through these kind of documents in some sense. But you mentioned something about also Google search kind of functionality. Is that the ranking part, or what? It's
the ranking and the keyword search. So it combines. It also adds a keyword search or a semantic search as part of this. So It is a little bit language dependent in the sense of handling keywords and these type of things. So and to be honest, I mean we need to bring in the research people to give you really the insights around that. And to be honest, they are very happy to talk with people. But I mean, what they saw was when you were searching only using like cosine similarities or distance, it could be limited in the search space. So it could miss some of the nuances between things, which the search engine was quite good at capturing. So they saw and had research around when you combine these two, you get better accuracy. The Cortex search comes from one of the acquisitions we did from which I can't remember, where we pick our CEO from, so I can't remember the company name. I should, but I mean what they were building was an LLM based search engine to compete with Google.
I recognize this completely. I remember from the old Peltarian days, we also built kind of a search functionality like that combines like semantic search with keyword search.
Yeah.
And I think you need both. And if you are unable to do a more syntactical kind of keyword search, people will get annoyed because they're so used to using Google search and just searching for keywords. And if that doesn't work, which semantic search rarely does, then they will get annoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, we're quite unique with this feature in the market as it is. And we do have published a lot of research around. Well, we publish it as a blog post, but it's actually research when they are testing and comparing and benchmarking and these type of things. And to be honest, the Snowflake research people are mind blowing in what they know and what they can do. They are very knowledgeable people.
I can imagine. If we just go a bit more into document AI as well, because I think, for me personally, and I think a lot of people, it would be interesting to just understand a bit more. So, okay, given a certain document, I guess a PDF, an invoice or something, how does it actually extract the content from that? It has
an OCR functionality as part of it. So what? And there's a nice research paper. It's a couple of years old around this. So what they created is they call the model a tilt model. So yeah, so it's as they explained on me, it's a combination of it's not a full-blown foundation LLM behind the scenes, but it has similarities in it. But it has an OCR part, so it actually extracts all the text. It gets it on the make sure adjust it so it gets correct, and then it's been trained on a number of languages in order to understand and find values based on a question in that sense. So they do a lot of these things out of the box in it directly.
But it doesn't use like the big, GPT-4o kind of models.
No, it's something homegrown that they built. These Polish people that was very clever from the university.
Oh, okay, cool, awesome. Fun to get down to some technical details here.
I will do my best. I mean, some of this is just flying over my head, and then when they start talking to me about it, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You can stop now, because I'm super confused.
Awesome. Perhaps we can go a bit more into more long-term, and as the time progresses, we get increasingly philosophical and this
nice.
kind of, long-term kind of questions. But given that you've been at Snowflake for 5 years?
Yeah, almost 5 years now.
How does it compare? How would you say Snowflake compares today to what it was 5 years ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, first of all, the scale of it is insane. I think, if I'm not wrong, when I joined, we had about 1,500 customers globally, and now I think we crossed 11,000.
Oh.
So just think of the scale of things and the number of people that have been hired. So I mean, when I joined, you can still do a lot of things, but it was very easy to you could, as I said, I just grabbed the data science area because I saw that nobody in EMEA was doing anything, and I like it, so I just took charge of it and became the guy that they could ask questions about AI, data science, and I could answer it and position things and these type of things. So it was very easy to just grab your part and do things. That has not changed that much. It's still possible, but of course the number of areas that are open is getting fewer and fewer because we're covering more and more ground. But I think also what I like is people are very reachable. I think that is what has kept me still there is that you can approach anyone for anything and they will answer you and be very happy to do that. So there's a nice culture in the sense of knowledge sharing and being helpful and I mean, I wouldn't say I go up to ask people at C-level questions, but I mean I can ask any product manager anything and they will respond, and if they are the wrong person they will point me to the right direction and so on.
Oh, that sounds like a good culture.
Yeah, it is. It's
how many employees do you have today? Is
it, I don't know.
Okay.
A couple of thousand, I think. I don't really know. It's a number I should know, but I think it's like there's a lot. I mean, every time I go, and I'm not visiting the Stockholm office enough, but every time I go there, I think there's always a lot of people that's like, are they new? I haven't seen them before. And it's also, I mean, I'm not visiting there enough because I also get the question, oh, you're new. It's like, no, I've been there for 5 years. So,
but you work mainly remotely, or?
I work mainly remotely. It's my role is an EMEA role, so I spend maybe 90% of my time with customers outside the Nordics.
And we travel a lot, I guess.
It has been a lot, which is interesting in these days, but it is what it is.
And I know a lot of startup people, and they claim that they want to build like AI solutions for whatever kind of enterprise companies, but I think they're missing out a lot of what enterprises really want. If you were to elaborate a bit more, perhaps, given that the last year's theme for the Snowflake World Tour was enterprise AI, what do you think enterprises needs the most in terms of finding value from AI?
I think, it's a very good question. I think we have kind of moved away from, or starting to move away from the trying out phase, or let's do a POC and see what happens, to there's need to actually be an ROI around this. And I think, and I mean, you can say whatever you want about Gartner, but I was at the Gartner Synopsis this year. And the only thing I took away from there that I found was interesting is, if you're not measuring something, why should you apply AI on it? And that spoke to me a little bit, because in the sense, if you think of it, and they had a quite good analogy around it, is like, if you get 15 minutes back every day, will you do 15 minutes more work, or will you just have another cup of coffee? and it's kind of, that's funny, but then you think of it like, yeah, that's true. I would probably not work more. And so the gain of this, that efficiency is not, I'm not going to be more efficient from a company point of view, because I will not do more work. I will just have another coffee. And what they were after, which I agree to, is you need to measure things in order to make sure that you actually have the impact of AI that you think you're going to have. Not saying that efficiency type of use cases are bad. They are good. They will help us and make us more profound in what we're doing. But I think we for enterprises, and I see that more and more, that they actually have a clear view that if we do this, we need to see a gain in some way. We need to either cost, we need to increase revenue, but we need to have an effect of it. And many of them is now not as afraid as they were, let's say, 12 months ago, that they were missing out. I think we have passed that, where everybody was panicking and say, we need to do AI. And you say, yes, fine. What do you want to do? We don't know. You tell us. And it's like, okay, that is not a good starting point for talking about what you're going to do with AI. To that we actually have some use cases that we think is valid for AI, and we want to test it by you and see if it actually would work and how Snowflake would fit into that. So I think what I see with enterprises is they are looking for things that gives an ROI. They are passing by the tryout and let's see what happens type of things. I think also they realize that it's easy to build something quickly, but it's very hard to deploy and run it in production. And there's a lot of moving parts in a lot of these solutions. So I mean, if we circle back to, we were talking about Cortex Analyst, and as I said, to use Cortex Analyst, you only need to create a file, a YAML file that describes it. That is the only thing you need in order to do text to SQL. And I think Uber did a nice blog a couple of months ago about their journey in building a text to SQL, and I think they did it. Was talking more about it in a meetup in the Netherlands a week ago or so, and they spent 7 months in order to get it up to 75% accuracy or something like that. And there was a lot of moving parts in this. And I think what companies realize, it's very easy to do a quick POC or looking at the vendor demo and see, well, this is easy. When you work with something like, okay, we have 2 tables. But when you have 15, 20, 50 tables and complex relationships, it's started to get more complex, and you don't want to maintain that. So what I see is that they looking for simpler solutions that is easy to get in production, that actually is stable and works, because they don't have the manpower to manage this. Not everybody has the capacity of Google or these companies. I think it's the whole thing we had before with Hadoop and everything. Like, everybody was going to do Hadoop, they're going to do it themselves. And you ask why? Well, Spotify is doing that. And it's like, yeah, but Spotify has probably 200 more engineers that you have that actually been writing the source code. So of course they can do it themselves. But do you have that? It's like, no, we don't. Okay, so maybe we should talk about more packaged solutions that do these things. So I think they see that, sure, there's drawbacks by having something that is more pre-built than you do everything by yourself, but you get some advantages. Is you get something going and you can interact, and once you have that in production, you get the feedback, well, then we catch up the next iteration, you get more and more functionality. So
I love the agile kind of aspects you're bringing up here. I think also that so many companies fail with AI because they think just having a prototype is enough, and then putting it in production, how hard can it be?
Yeah. It is very hard.
It is very hard. It's probably 100 times more difficult and more time than just building a prototype. So I love that you're saying that. But I also, enterprises have a lot of procedures. They have a lot of rules. They have a lot of policies. They need to be compliant. They need to have, security demands being fulfilled, and they need to log stuff. And I think, this is actually something that so many companies miss out on.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And I think also this is something where companies need to understand putting things in production is so much more difficult than people think. And to be able to comply with all the regulation, with all the security demands, and saying some people should not have access to all the data they could have. In a big organization, in enterprise settings, it doesn't work like that. And so many are failing on that. Anyway, I also must say, I think, Snowflake has some issues there as well, if I may say so.
Yeah, we probably have. I mean...
But I'm glad to see that, of course, a lot of enterprises are using Snowflake and it's very successul. So
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, to be very clear, I mean, we are not the solution for everything. I think we one part of this, and we fit a lot of use cases. But as I say, I mean, I usually say, I mean, we chase data, and if data is a critical part of your solution, we have a natural place there. But if the data is not critical in any sense, we might not have, and you might build it in some other solution, or you use a point solution for it or whatever. I mean, there's room for everyone.
Good. I would like to also move. I know you're going to speak at the Data Innovation Summit in a couple of weeks as well, which I'm looking forward to. And what was your topic again?
My topic about, regulatory things, regulations.
Yeah.
So we have a talk, or it's only me now because my co-presenter had to drop off. But we're going to talk about, if I remember it right, is about the coming regulations we have, or the regulations we have, like EU AI Act, how it impacts us, and what is the things we can do to handle it. I mean, there's a couple of parts of it that we can probably manage already today in that sense. So hopefully I will bring some insights and something that people can take advantage of or take to them. I think regulation we're going to handle it whatever we want it or not. We can either fight it, or we can kind of embrace it and do the best of it. I think the later, because it's also open up probably some opportunities for us. And in the end, it's a lot of it is about having control. So making sure that you have documented what you do, what data is used, how the data is used, who can access what, and so on and so forth. So I mean, it shouldn't. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to this, and I'm no expert in EU AI Act to be honest in that sense. But I mean, my experience from most regulations is about documentation and proving that we are not doing the wrong things. And the EU Act has levels as well. And I mean, depending on what type of application you have, you get more and more requirements.
I mean, I think this is a core part of also enterprise kind of data and AI usage. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm very surprised that not more efforts are being placed in how to be compliant, because if more companies had a belief and confidence in that we can be compliant, I think they could use data and AI to much larger extent than they can today.
I agree. I mean, what it might happen, or what I can see in some companies is that they kind of say, well, since we don't know, we don't dare to do anything, so they kind of freeze. And in some companies it might be the opposite. Is like, well, let's see what happens and just go for it. And I think both approaches is not the right ones to do. But I mean, the whole thing here is I don't see it as a kind of a new thing. I mean, as long as we've been using ML or AI, we have always have this notion, but the need of, we need to explain what we're doing. We need to have control. We've been talking about responsible AI for a long time before we had all this Gen AI part of it. We had all these worries about, when deep learning and object detections. I mean, these type of things was very hyped about, let's identify potential criminals based on videos when they're moving around, and we have the issues with selecting the right candidate based on HR data that didn't go that well.
Resumes and that.
And so on and so forth. And it boils down to, you need to know what data I used, how biased is my data, and so on and so forth. So I mean, the EU AI Act notched it up a level, and of course there's a lot of things that is very vague in it, so it's kind of hard to know exactly what it means until someone challenges it. But I think we can go a long way by just having control. I mean, lineage and these type of things. So.
If we were still to, I know you're not like a lawyer by trade, but still, for people that have no idea what the EU AI Act is, how would you describe it?
I mean, it regulates, or it sets so depending on how you use AI for what type of applications, from having a very simple AI chatbot that I can use to generate simple text for something that it doesn't use any personal data, it doesn't do anything, it just gives me a text based on the input, which is there's no regulations around that because it doesn't do anything, up to a level where we have applications that in real time identify my sentiment or my emotions and so on and so forth, which is on the highest level that is very regulated and requires a lot of things.
Even prohibited, right?
Well, yeah, even prohibited. It needs to be in very specific situations where you can do this. And then there's a number of levels between. If I remember correctly, we have 6 levels that we need to navigate between. And depending on what you're building, you end up in one of these levels. I think one of the challenges we have now is we don't really know where to put the foundation models we have, in which area they should end up in, because they are very general in what they can do, depending on how I instruct them. So do we say that they are responsible for making sure that they cannot be used for certain things that they can be used, or is it the one that is building the application that is using the model that has the responsibility for it? So I think one thing this will open up definitely is more domain-specific models that is trained to do a very specific task, because then you get away from things. If I just want to have if I just want to summarize legal documents, and I might just need a model that can do that, and it cannot do anything else. And as long as I can prove it cannot do anything else, I should be in the clear for that thing. So it might also open up a new area of domains for companies to create models that are more specific, and it might be easier to do that if we look at what DeepSeek could do with less. So if that's really the case, it might open up these type of things that we can do that.
I mean, that moves also to a question that I'd love to discuss shortly, which is, what are the future going to look like with super general models versus more specific and potentially open source models? And it's interesting to hear your thoughts there. It sounds.
I mean, personally, I think we're going to have. I mean, we're going to have less and less of these general models because they're getting so big and so on and cover a lot. I think there's the need for more specific models that can, and especially when.
Let's wait a bit with that discussion, because that's a big topic. And
it is,
we have a lot of thoughts about that. But let's getting back to the EU AI Act, and then we have these levels. I think it's 4 levels, but I'm
maybe
not sure.
Maybe it's 4, yeah.
But still, then we have this kind of risk level we have to in some way assess and say, okay, what kind of level is this application on? And then we have to do, if it's a more higher risk, we have to do a lot of compliance work, right, to be compliant, right?
Yeah.
What's your sense of what the impact of the AI Act will be? And just to give you some more context here, I actually heard from a member in the Swedish AI Commission who said something rather controversial, which I was surprised, but still positively surprised with, saying we need to deregulate. And I think we hear more from France as well, Macron and others who say as well that, if we just keep adding more regulation, time and time again, it will cause a lot of problems for Europe. What's your thinking about this? Do we need to deregulate?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think as everything needs to be on the right level. I think there's challenges with letting these type of things roam completely free without any control over it. There's potentials in. The challenge we have now with all the deep fakes and everything is it's harder and harder to manage to where things comes from and if it's actually real or if it's something that someone has created. So we need to have some sort of control over things. Yeah. The level of regulations, I don't really know what is a good regulation, but I think
is it too much today or too little today?
I don't know, because I don't think we have really. Everybody is just holding. A lot of companies just holding back, so nobody is challenging the regulations in order to get them more clarified. And we don't know until they start challenging these things. That's when we get what it actually means, and we can start see on it. But I'm not completely for a totally unregulated.
No, I don't think anyone really is. Some regulation, I think everyone.
I think that, but maybe we should talk more about responsibility and these type of things and transparency. I think that is more important, because that will also help us in that sense that if we have transparency in the data we're using and how we're using it, and if we have also clear responsibility of things is in the sense of, well, who is responsible for it and so on and so forth, I think we will come a long way with use these type of things. I think now.
But we can also see effects like, we recently had Meta releasing the Llama 4 models last week, and they were not allowed to be used in Europe. And we've seen a number of other models that are from OpenAI and Google that are not allowed to be used in Europe.
But is that, I haven't read fully. Isn't that more that they have chosen to not release, or have they been told not to release? Because that's a difference.
The reason for them not, it's possible for you and me to download these models from Meta, but according to the license and the fear of regulation, you're not allowed to use them.
But that is because they don't want to take the fight, which I think is a kind of a it's a little bit. I don't know the right word I want to use for it, but I think they have the muscles, and they should definitely take the fight. It cannot be worse than it. The worst case scenario is they are not allowed to use them in EU. That is the worst outcome of fighting the regulation about this, and the best outcome is they can. And so there's nothing for sure. There's some money in doing it, but they can question the regulations and say, well, we don't agree to this, or we see we are fulfilling it by X, Y, Z. But I think they kind of take the easy way out.
In a different way here, and I'm of course pro-regulation. We should have regulation. I think no one really wants to have a completely unregulated market. It would be horrible. Just the impact of cybersecurity, creating a new vaccine or a new coronavirus using AI, or for war reasons or whatnot. It would be horrible, of course. But then still, thinking more about where the level should be, and if we have the biggest tech companies in the world, they are the richest companies in the world, they have the biggest legal departments in the world of any kind of company, and if they choose not to take the fight with EU regulation, what other company in EU would do so?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that, and I don't really know. But and maybe we have too much, or maybe it's just like there's a waiting game currently. It's with all the things going on in the sense of what they want to do or what they don't want to do. And I think it's also, I mean, down to it, a lot of this is probably around the data that is used for training. That is the sensitive part of it as well. And I think there needs to be some managing of that or handling of that, in the sense of we need to have some control on what data they're using. And I think otherwise I don't know. I don't have a good answer on that. Yeah. I wish I had, but
me too. I don't have a good answer for it. But I think it's an interesting question.
It definitely is. I think, I don't know. I mean, working with finance, and finance is a very regulated area. I don't think they see it as challenging as maybe other areas as well, because they're used to regulations in a way where everything is very tightly controlled. But of course, if it stops us from innovating and we will, go lag behind and these type of things, then maybe we need to change things.
Going back a bit to open source, and I would like to hear your thinking here a bit. And if we go, you mentioned DeepSeek, for example, and the impact that could have. Do you think? Okay, let me phrase it like this. We had a discussion on this pod a number of times, saying what the future will be in terms of frontier models versus more bespoke models, more specifically designed models that you spoke of, like for legal reasons or whatnot.
Yeah.
And if I just say, a bit what we have said before, and please let me know what you think about that. We could imagine a future where we have a few set of really like large-scale generic kind of frontier models, like the Geminis, like the GPTs from OpenAI and Groks from XAI and so forth. They will be really, really expensive to train. They will even be really expensive to use to serve because they are so big.
Yeah.
And that means that potentially a lot of companies will have problems using them. But then we can think of having a huge number of more smaller models like the DeepSeek started to do, and now that we're seeing OpenAI with the O3 and O4, which is going down in size more and more and more. Would you agree that we will probably have a future where we'll have a few set, like a 5-10 kind of frontier models, which are really huge, and then we'll have like thousands or even millions of more bespoke models that companies do use for real, that is potentially fine-tuned for more bespoke purposes? Is that the future you would agree with?
I think so. I mean, sooner or later, a lot of this is just going to be functionality. So task-specific models that is good at doing. I mean, generating as we were talking, a data engineering pipeline. We don't need a big foundation model for doing that. We just need a model that understands the platform it's going to generate it for, and so on and so forth. So I definitely think so, because I think that once the technology is going to be more embedded into applications in a way, or in solutions as traditional functionality, specific in areas where you might not need to. There's not that much that is changing. It's pretty static in what it does, and you might tweak it sometimes because we have a new release of something and so on. I definitely see that, because I think we don't need these full frontier general models, because they can do everything, but we don't need to do everything. I mean, I don't know how about others, but I can spend a lot of time just getting a foundation model to do what I want, because I need to get the prompt right. And it takes a lot of time to I mean, if I wanted to say, well, take this document that I have, I can give you a good example. I was doing a demo for in Snowflake you can share data, so we have data providers that provides data, so FactSets, Bloomberg, and so on. And sometimes these data providers, they are not good at using Snowflake features to document the data, so they don't provide descriptions on tables and columns. They provide a PDF. And having for analysts, in order to figure out which data to use, they need to read the PDFs. So what I was doing, or actually a colleague built the base demo and then I tweaked it, was, okay, let's extract all this data, these PDFs, and then use an LLM to extract the data dictionaries and provide that in a nice JSON format that I can ingest. And I don't know how many hours I spent to get that prompt right in order to get the JSON as I wanted it, because every now and then it gave me a different response. Just to get it to not say, yes, I can generate a JSON, here is the JSON. Even if you say, don't say anything else, then just give me the JSON. So, and having a function that only can do that, and it's an LLM, but it's just specific, and I can say, here's the document, give me the data dictionary. I can, of course, fine-tune myself in order to get it to do it, but I think these type of things, we're going to have these bespoke small models that does that functionality. Right. Especially if we can get them down in small sizes, we don't need to have the same type of infrastructure behind it. It's get cheap to run them and so on. Why not?
I mean, both for economical purposes, because they are quicker to run, right?
Yeah.
And easier and quicker to fine tune. But I guess also for regulatory purposes, it's easier to say that, these can't be abused in the same way as a more generic.
Yeah, because it cannot do anything else, but it will give me a JSON with this. And if I ask for something else, it will say, I don't understand what you're asking for. And yeah, absolutely. And I think that what I'm meaning, we will get more domain specific models as an output of this act, probably, hopefully. And I think maybe we go away a little bit from the foundation model race as well.
Awesome. Let me try a bit more futuristic kind of idea. I have this kind of a 3-layer thinking of how AI can provide value for companies. Of course, we can have data science teams or data engineers working with Snowflake and other toolings like that to find insights and build AI applications on top of the data. But it's rather limited to just have these kind of super experts to build it. And then you can think, we can potentially have a second step, saying people that may not know how to program Python, but at least know perhaps some SQL, or can at least be trained to write more simplistic or tweak SQL as they are being seen. If we do that, then we have a second layer where more people, like business analysts, can start to find insights from data. And then, the value from data scales in a rather large extent by upskilling them in how to work with data, right?
Yeah.
Then, moving to the third layer, and then it's back to the topic that we spoke about a bit in the beginning, talking to the data.
Yeah.
And I would argue that if we actually get to the point where we can talk to the data using LLMs or frontier models or bespoke Snowflake models or whatnot, that would be a significant value provider, since then non-technical people could start speaking to the data. Would you agree with this kind of 3-layer structure of how the future can enable more people to find value from data?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI will, for your layers, it will enhance each layer in different ways, because depending on skill levels we have. And I think, to go to myself, I'm not a Python expert at all. If I'm going to go back to a language for analytics, I will prefer the R, but that's me. But that's also how old I am.
I'd love to get into that discussion, but let's not do that.
But yeah, so I can see that, as I mentioned in the beginning, that having LLMs help me in coding will make me more efficient and get me quicker, and then we can add more layers where I need to know less and less details to do something. Yeah. And I think absolutely we are heading there, and I think it might be as we discussed, bespoke models might be the answer, because we will minimize the risk of hallucinations, doing wrong things, which means we can trust them more and we can test them, because the higher up we go, the more controlled is maybe the wrong word, but it needs to be verified that it actually doesn't do things. If I ask but what the sales figures was last day, it shouldn't make that up if it cannot find data for last day. It should say, I don't have these figures. You need to ask a different questions, or here's questions you can ask. So each level will require more of the functionality than we might have today, which also speaks to more of bespoke or smaller models that is very specific for that, because we cannot have it make mistakes or that many mistakes. The lower we are, the more mistakes it can do, because I can verify, control, and correct it. But if I get too high up in the knowledge level, it's getting hard in that sense.
Mats, what's up next for Snowflake? Anything you can share about, like, what can we look forward to in terms of AI when it comes to Snowflake coming years?
Oh, that is a good question. I mean, like everyone else, we are finding new ways of using this and providing functionality. A lot of it is, of course, driven by what our customers is asking for and talking with us about. So I think as we talked a couple of times and briefly around, I think we will push some of the functionality further down, or hopefully adding more functionality around not just only talking to the data from an analytical standpoint, but also talking to the data from the data engineering standpoint. I think that would be a logical step, but I don't really know. But I mean, we are expanding the way how we are building our agent API. Of course, we see a lot of potential there in doing more with these type of things.
So you basically ask some kind of initial LLM or frontier model or foundation model.
Yeah, it's the whole orchestration part of it that we will. I mean, short term, today we basically have only two tools: the Cortex Analyst, the Cortex Search, and we will of course add more types of tools that you can add to that. And I mean, we acquired a company called Datavolo a while back that opens up for us to ingest more different types of data easily, which will also help these type of things in that sense. But I think a lot of focus is, I mean, we do a lot of things around the core product still, making it more faster and better in that sense. But I think also in the AI space, there's a lot of things that can be added in making things easier, more accurate, more faster, and so on and so forth. So,
cool. Looking forward to that. I have to ask you a bit more sensitive topic, perhaps a more political topic as well.
We will see. Yeah,
because I think a lot of companies, and I know myself and others are speaking about this, but companies are becoming a bit afraid about the current Trump era that we are seeing, and that they are adding tariffs to whatever kind of companies that we are seeing, and requiring companies to pay potentially some tariffs for things that we haven't done in the past. And that potentially is leading to fear of American companies in some sense. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you discussed this at any way in Snowflake, or what can you say potentially for European companies to feel safe that we're not going to see 100% tariffs when working with Snowflake?
I mean, to be honest, I cannot probably say anything in the sense of I don't know, and I don't know our stand in this, and I'm not particular the right person to talk about it. But I mean, there's the way how we do things internally and communicate hasn't changed anything at all. We still talk about the same values that we had before the elections and so on and so forth. I mean, Snowflake works a lot with inclusion and these type of things. The discussion about trusting an American company has ongoing as long as I've been working at Snowflake. And a lot of discussions has been around, well, how can you guarantee that my data is not going into US and these type of things. So we have had it's not the same discussion, but similar discussion in the sense of, well, we run Snowflake in a certain way, but of course we are using the cloud providers, which is American companies as well. So who knows in that sense. So I mean, I don't have anything that I can particularly say because I don't know. And I mean, currently we don't have tariffs on services. For some reason that we might know or not know, it's excluded. I don't know why, but we can all guess around that, and I don't really know. I think it's we are in times that we will have to see what happens, and we are running things like we did before the election in the sense of that. But
yeah, it's what should we call it? Exciting times, or
it is in many ways, but I could wish for them to be less exciting, to be honest.
Agreed.
Or it could be excited on other things.
Yes, true. So, Mats, if we were to move to a bit more futuristic kind of questions, and I'm not sure, do you have any thoughts about AGI? Do you think we will reach a point where we will have AI systems that supersedes humans in any kind of aspect? I think we all agree that it doesn't do that today, but do you believe it will come to that point?
Well, I mean, if we look at it from if we don't have an end time when it happened, I think definitely yes. But if it's going to be near time in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, I don't really know. I think if you would have asked me a year ago or 1.5 years, I would say definitely no. And then we have the whole Gen AI, and then you can always argue like Gen AI is very simplest in the way it's just predicting what the next letter is based on the previous letter and so on and so forth. But the complexity of it is kind of mind blowing, and how it do it. So I don't know, I tend to realize every prediction I do about this is wrong, but I'm not quite sure because I think still the general way of handling things, and we haven't, as to my knowledge, really figured out how we work and why we are so good at generalizing. And I think and I do believe that the current way of how our models are built is not going to handle that.
Yeah, we need some more.
It needs some more, changes. But who knows what the whole quant what that will do? Because we haven't seen what that is going to do in this area yet, and I'm sure it will change a lot of things for us once they start figuring out that, okay, we might be creating some AI models based on quant technology. And then who knows? Did
you have to go there? Oh, it's one of my rabbit holes.
Well, to be honest, quant is an area where every now and then I read up and I say, okay, I understand it. And then I read something else and it's like, I have no freaking clue what is going on here. I was a couple of years ago. I was at a German event, and there was this guy that was talking about quant and how he was working at university there, and they were testing using quant compute for training traditional machine learning models, and if it was giving any gains, and it could for certain tasks, but for certain tasks not, and so on. And he'd explained it in a good way, and when I was watching it, I was like, okay, now I understand. And then I was asked for my colleague to say, well, what was it about? And like, I don't have a clue anymore. But it could be the same thing twice. That's
it's a hobby topic of mine. And
it is.
Perhaps we could take 5 minutes if it's okay.
Let's see how I can manage. Let's see.
Okay, but let me give some kind of intro, and then please disagree with me for any kind of statement I made. But I've been interested in that for at least 10 plus years. I actually wrote my first quantum computer program in 2014.
Oh,
and being part of a D-Wave's beta program. But anyway, so if we believe that quantum computers is basically these kind of entanglement and superpositions that can happen between qubits, and then potentially we could have exponential speed up for computation in these qubits, but that could be really cool stuff, right? But then I have a number of buts for this, and Google have had their Willow chip, and Microsoft recently had that Miorama chip, and they try to fight the big problem of decoherence. Decoherence means that as soon as you connect more than a couple of qubits together, they get disturbance from the noise surrounding it, and then these kind of potential exponential speed ups that you see start to degrade. So claim number one, and please disagree, is we have no single practical use for quantum computers today. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I don't know enough, but I've seen to read that they managed to do some nice, not nice, but cracking some encryption algorithms with it. So I guess that is
no way.
They haven't? No.
I can say with certainty there is no single practical use for quantum computers.
There's not. Yeah. Interesting.
So the only thing they've done is they have, the Willow chip was about 100 qubits, and with 100 qubits you can do nothing. They have 1,000 qubits for, I think IBM have something like that, but still you require at least 100,000 plus qubits before you can do anything practical in terms of breaking RSA kind of cryptation or anything like that. I still have, should I go there? Okay. let me do it. I have two kind of problems with quantum computers. For one, it won't scale.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you add more qubits together, it requires them to be entangled with each other, and that will be increasingly hard for every single qubits being added. And that's exactly what we have seen so far. No one has been able to scale up quantum computers. So I don't think they will scale. Secondly, as Demis Hassabis said, and he said it well, and I hadn't thought about that before, but he said something, if you take something like AlphaFold. AlphaFold was this AI system from DeepMind, which are able to predict the 3D structure of protein amino acid sequences. Now, this is a problem that is exponentially in complexity, meaning if you want to explore all the potential 3D structure that this kind of sequence of amino acids have, it will take forever to try them all out to see which one actually works. But that is not what the AI system did. So the AI system could actually predict like a microscopic kind of selection of them, so you can use intelligence instead to say, let's just explore a few of them to see, will this 3D structure actually work? Now you can compare that with AlphaGo as well. AlphaGo is also a game, right? Playing Go, and it has exponential explosion of complexity, meaning every kind of step you take is impossible to try them all. But AI could still easily do it, and it can now today compete and win over any human. So humans have no chance in playing Go or chess or these kind of games. It doesn't do so by brute forcing every kind of potential step forward. It can find an intelligent way to just find the right path forward. So this is really what AI can do, both in AlphaFold and in AlphaGo and these kind of systems. Meaning, it's idiotic to say, that was a strong term, it's not perhaps adequate to say that classical computers needs to explore all kind of exponential explosion of complexity when solving a problem. You can find smart ways to do it. So AI could be a solution to find solutions to, like if you take weather forecasting, or if you take more exploring how you combine molecules for more biological purposes or whatnot. You don't need a quantum computer for that potentially. You can instead do what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
So even if you were able to scale up, you probably wouldn't be able to do it faster than AI could.
Oh, that might be. Yeah.
That was Demis Hassabis and not my words.
Yeah.
But I agree with it. So for one, you can't scale them up. Secondly, if you could, you still could use an AI better than a quantum computer could.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah. I have it's interesting. I have a friend he works with encryption, and they are working very hard now to make their encryptions quant safe.
It could be that we find a way to actually build and scale up quantum computers. It could be that we could actually break encryption with quantum computers going forward. So of course we should be safe rather than sorry and safe for it. And we actually do it. Anyway, we should. So I think it does.
Yeah. But it's an interesting aspect. And I mean, you certainly know more than me. And I think it's, we might just abandon that path and find a new path further down the road. But I mean, if we go back to AGI, it's hard to say, because nobody thought that we're going to do, few people thought that the NAI step that would come that fast and be so advanced in what it could do and how it can do things. So the leaps we do now is kind of so big, so fast, but it might also be that we have reached the end because we don't really know yet. So it's hard to say, but I think maybe not in my lifetime, but I think definitely we will probably crack it because we always
crack quantum computing.
Crack the AGI, and
that will happen in your lifetime, of course, right?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, what's speaking for humans and speaking against us is that we don't give up. Even if we should, and we just go for it, and I think that is also maybe become our doom. But nevertheless, I think it will happen in some way or another.
Do you have a favorite definition of AGI?
I not really. I think it's about generalizing. I usually when I've talked with my children, we talked a little bit about AI and that it's not that intelligent, and usually what I say is a very simple generalization is you as a child can learn very quickly that, okay, I can drink water from a glass, and then I can apply that to everything that has a similar shape. I can say, well, I can drink water from that bowl as well because I can see it's the same shape. And today's AI cannot do that distinction or do that generalization because it's just they've never been exposed to the bowl. And I think once we crack that, well, then things is going to happen. But for me, that if once it can do these type of things, that's when we start seeing the more real, maybe not intelligence, but generally being able to generalize in a way that it can actually do new things without me having to teach it.
I like Sam Altman's definition, actually. And I like these kind of small, very simplistic definitions. So he basically defined AGI as when an AI systems beats the performance of an average coworker.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
An average one as well. And if you think about that, if you take whatever kind of coworker you have, he may not be a top coworker, but he does average good. And you think, can I just take ChatGPT or another AI system and just replace him and say, you can go home, I will just ask ChatGPT to do it, or whatever AI system you have. There is no way you can do it today.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because I like the metaphor of an autonomous car or autonomous driving, saying, one part of autonomous driving is being able to perceive just the cameras around the car. Second one is that just trying to plan or find a way forward, both short term and long term. And then you have to take action, the control part. Should I turn left or right, or gas or brake, or just continue? I think perception-wise, and that basically is the knowledge that LLMs can have today, and these kind of models, and that's better than humans, I would say. But the reasoning, the planning, worse than humans, and control definitely worse than humans. And the control is basically the agentic part that we are still working on, but still very far behind, and certainly in reasoning as well. So once we do, supersede humans in also reasoning and also in control and agentic aspects, perhaps we are getting close to performance of an AI system that could do things like an average coworker. But we're certainly far away still. And especially in the physical world. It's one thing in a digital world, right? But in a physical world, in being able to do the dishes or whatnot.
That's far away. That's what we want.
Do the dishes, right? That would be awesome too.
That would be awesome. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think, as long as we need to instruct it so extensively to do things, it's not going to happen.
Okay, final question, Mats.
Yeah.
Imagine that AGI do happen at some point in time. Who knows when, but it does happen. We can think about two extremes. Either it's the horrible dystopian kind of future where we have the Matrix, the Terminators, the machine trying to kill all humans. Or it could be the opposite. As Nick Bostrom wrote in his book Deep Utopia, it could be more of a utopian future where AI have solved the societal challenges we have. It's fixed cancer. It's solved the climate change challenges that we have, fixed the energy crisis and whatnot. And we potentially live in a world of abundance. I guess both are very extreme.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, where we will end up? Will it be the dystopian Terminator future or a world of abundance?
Well, I certainly hope for the later.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, given how we humans are, we're probably going to end up in the first one because we tend to mess things up.
Yes.
But I think in the end, I think we will end somewhere between because I don't think well, maybe in the end, but I don't think it will take, even if we start getting an AGI, it will take a while for it to solve a lot of things for us. But
and it will take longer than people think.
I think so too. It's not like, well, suddenly it figured out how to cure cancer. I mean, we do have gotten some advantage there, and we know a lot of things, and it needs to, I mean, it can only base things on the knowledge that we have. Yeah. So first it needs to create new knowledge before it can, do something new. But who knows? I mean, it would be, I don't know. I don't want to live in a utopia either. I mean,
okay. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what are we humans supposed to do? I mean, just walk. I mean,
well, that's an interesting question. Nick Bostrom wrote about that, and he said, people are so afraid about not having a meaning to live or something. But then, on the other hand, if you take children, for example,
yeah, that's true.
They are living a very utopian kind of life in some sense, that they are being taken care of, and even like retired people, they have their pensions coming in. And so some people, or even pets, I guess, or a cat or a dog that you have, they're being cared for. They don't seem to hurt that much.
No, probably not. But I mean, they also, I mean, children, they do it for, a limited part of their life, and the more they grow, we are decreasing the amount we provide for them as that. But I mean, it's one thing that a small amount of people, doesn't do it. But when everyone is supposed to figure out what they want to do apart from working, and suddenly you're responsible for, planning what you're going to do, not just for, afternoon and evenings. You also have to take care of the whole day, and you have to do that every day for a foreseen future. I mean, it will put a lot of requirements of what type of things we can do, in the sense of, keeping ourselves busy and doing interesting things. I don't know.
No.
But maybe that's me.
Who knows? Who knows? I think it will be exciting years to come, for sure.
Definitely for sure. I would say that.
With that, thank you so much, Mats Stellwall, for coming here and the amazing discussions. And I hope you can stay on for a short after work as well to discuss even more topics.
Thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure.